Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it rain. Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it rain.
Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. If you're watching live, if you're watching in the future, happy whatever time it happens to be for you. And also, we love to see you here in real time when we do these every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern. So make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can join us, because we'd love to see you in the lovely side chat with all the lovely people who are joining us here live and can contribute and say things to us like our own emojis, for example. I am joined by the one and only Lil of all trades. Lil, how are you this fine day? Aside from muted. The women must be silent.
Yeah, I do have that shirt that says St. Paul says to shut the fuck up, or you're cordially invited to shut the fuck up.
Yes.
No, I'm great. It's been a good morning so far. So I've got it around here somewhere.
It's scripture. According to one apologist's interpretation of a one denomination's selection of a translation of et cetera. It's amazing. We have so much stuff like that. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, she honestly, Ember has the best shirts and the best products out there. Like they're fantastic. They're awesome, and they make me laugh every time I see them.
I do my best, but I don't know if I'd say the best. Sayfire says I heard there's a dinosaur on YouTube who's also a linguist. I've heard that rumor too. I've caught him in the side chat from time to time, but I haven't been able to wrangle him and actually get him on a show. New Year's goals, I suppose. Goodness. All right. I know. Spooky's like muted. Psh, amateurs. I know. It's atrocious. The thing that they'll just let anyone on the internet these days or something. All right. So we are doing Advent. We're doing Atheist Advent. The accomplishments of secularism. And it's holy shit, is it the 20th? It is the 22nd as we're live. So we've got 3. We have an actual Advent calendar with random geology in it. It's full of rocks. We should remember the rocks. So for the last time, we've got a triple pack to open. If I can get the door open. All right. So for Saturday's rock, Saturday's stone, Saturday's wonder of also I did my nails. They're Christmassy now. Haha.
You look
it looks dark. I don't know what this is supposed to be. I'm gonna say it's a garnet because garnets tend to be a little bit rough, a little dark. Often they tend towards red, but they can be straight on black. And let's see, this says garnets are a group of silicate minerals that have been used since the Bronze Age as gemstones and abrasives. It's an abrasive gemstone. It'll fuck you up. Let's see. Sunday, the 21st, we got one of these, which is very blue. I am loving the shade. We do love the solid colors. This one looks to me like sodalite, which is a form of aventurine. This is a silicon dioxide mineral and a member of the quartz family. So it's related to quartz. As you can see from the structure, it's got some kind of layer thing going on. It's pretty fabulous. And then Monday's rock of the day. Come here. Get it out of its hole is one of these. Now this looks kind of like one that I thought we saw before, the picture jasper. It contains earthly colors that are due to high iron content and other minerals or impurities that create the artistry. It says it's a misspelling of a translation kind of thing. Now I can't remember which rock that was that we thought might be that before. I don't know. Once we have all of them, we can compare and we can try to sort them out and get the real descriptions. We have 2 more, the 23rd and 24th. So yeah, bear with us for those. Oh goodness, there's so much going on. It's my throat is so dry. Oh, so as you're probably aware by now, there is a holiday marathon coming up. Our friend Purple Rhymes with Orange organizes a mega stream every year for people who don't have somewhere to go or people to spend their holiday with IRL. They have somewhere to be. So for 48 hours, no matter if it's Christmas anywhere in the world, there will be a show on. There will be a live community you can partake in and be with people, and it's pretty fucking neat. I always meet new people every single time I do it. This show will be on twice, on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day during the normal time slot. On Christmas Day, there's a Java and Jugs leading into the show. Lily's got 2 shows, one on her channel, one with Kelly, where they're I mean, technically you're sharing, but whatever. There's a bunch of shows, and Ryan has a playlist put together for the whole thing. A bunch of other Java and Jugs hosts, a bunch of other community members that we all know and love. It'll be a fantastic time. I hope you join us. And 4th, the last day for the Advent calendar, is the first day of that. So it'll be neat. Like everything just runs together. But we're going to continue the science. Like I have loved how we've gotten to explore the science through the course of this stuff. We've gotten into areas I've never thought to explore before. And we keep building on things that we've talked about earlier, and that's really neat too. We're synthesizing, we're weaving a greater understanding, and that is really amazing. It makes me very, very happy. So hooray for that. So we're going to continue doing that right through up into the new year. We've got episodes scheduled through, I think, January 2nd so far. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you click the notification bell, because those are just our regularly scheduled shows. We do bonus shows around these parts too, including, I think tomorrow I've got the next adult Bible study, and by I do mean adult Bible study. You should join us for that. It's a ton of fun. Tentatively scheduled for tomorrow evening. It may move. One never knows. With bonus shows. Let's see. I think that covers all the notes. Do you have any notes before we dive in on today's topic? You're muted again. And I'm invisible because I have to turn my heater down.
Other than what I just said on the damn show, on Sunday is my birthday, so at some point during the early afternoon, I'm going to do a live stream, and then I will be on Bad Science Sunday, which I'm so excited about. Yeah, Maya asked me if I wanted to be on there, and she gave me the date. I'm like, that's my birthday. She's like, oh, we can reschedule it. I'm like, no, I want it for my birthday. It's too cool.
That's right. It makes an excellent birthday present. Oh, I wish I had like dangly earrings on today. I don't know why. It's just sort of, maybe it's the necklace or something. It just, with the look, I had my pearls from Job and Jugs earlier. I needed to clutch pearls for very, yeah. I don't know. I wish I had. So for those of you who've been around for a while, you know my ears are kind of fucked because I have ear infections that I can't get treatment for, because my sort of people don't need apply here sort of deal. So my ears are a little better. I can put earrings in for a short time, but like for a whole show, not a chance. So I love my fucking earrings and I can't, whatever. Such predicaments we must forge ahead. I am off topic though. I know that never happens.
Tangents.
Not around these parts.
We love them.
Oh, Maya says birthday stream. That's right. They make the best streams. Well, for the birthday person anyway.
Yeah, it's honestly probably the coolest birthday present that, well, not really a present, but it's like the coolest thing to happen to me on my birthday in like years. So I'm totally down for it.
Hell yeah. Oh yeah, Bree's show is about Mary Lude. Marie Lude. I'm half Welsh and I can't pronounce the Welsh word, but it's fine. Y'all know I can't do languages other than English. It's fine. But yeah, that's Bree's show for the mega stream, and it'll be fucking nifty because we mentioned it a few days ago. It's the rat battling horse skull, where if you lose the rat battle against the fucking horse skull, then it gets to break into your house and drink all your booze. Amazing. It's the ghost of Christmas drunkenness.
Yeah, it's I was actually going to look up the legend for it because I've heard about it like throughout my lifetime, but I've never really looked into it, and apparently it's a little bit on the weird side. So, but you know how the Welsh are, so
you know how the Welsh are. Leave them to their own devices. You end up with a freaking reboot of Doctor Who with everyone's favorite doctors now, but never mind. We don't need to talk about how ridiculously hot every single fucking doctor has been.
Yeah, like
we're not.
I've run into people who are Doctor Who fans, especially of the new ones, that absolutely love David Tennant. And I'm like, honey, I started on 9. I will stand Chris Eccleston any day of the week. He's my doctor. Sorry.
Lovely to meet you, Rose. Run for your life.
Exactly. I like it. He's direct.
The energy, right? Like I grew up, my father's favorite doctor was Tom Baker, jelly babies and long scarves and all that stuff. And it was very neat. It was very cool. But like the energy Chris Eccleston brought to the show, I was just like, yes, that.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, I've absolutely fell in love with it. So I was just like, yeah.
I wanted one of those scarves for so long. I have a friend who has one, and I'm so envious. I'm like, oh my goodness.
I have a pattern for it. I just don't have the yarn for it right now. I don't have the colors for it, but I have the pattern.
It happens. It's an oof. I'm before we get into things, I'm trying to catch up on messages because they started to pile up a bit during the previous show. Because Job and Jugs precedes this show on Mondays as well, and I want to like make sure I know what the hell is going on. Aunt Jer sent me a pronunciation guide for the horse skull. Thank you, Aunt Jer. Oh goodness. Alrighty, so today language. Now, yes, I see a short video demonstrating the pronunciation. It's fine. It's fine. We could get into that a little later. Today, how language shapes thought. Part of Advent is you have a Bible quote to meditate upon, and today's Bible quote is confuse their languages. Everybody probably remembers that from Genesis. That's the Tower of Babel thing. That humans are doing too good. We need to fuck them up a bit. Otherwise, they'll find God's hiding place, I guess, or something. So in 1984, both the book and the movie, the concept of newspeak is presented. And it's done in such a way that it's made clear that the party believes that by controlling language, they can control thought. If you can't conceptualize rebellion, if you don't have words for it, then you can't do it. And while that's not entirely correct, there's a lot of merit to that idea. It certainly doesn't hurt from the party's perspective. There's a saying that a person who speaks only one language understands none. And there's something to that as well. Because while words are our tools for communicating concepts from mind to mind, our ability to shape concepts into transmissible packets of information depends on the limits of our vocabulary. If our language simply does not cover a concept, then we can think it, but we may not be able to communicate it or understand it or integrate it into the synthesis of our greater comprehension of the world, right? Like this is the thing we've been talking about since the philosophers, right? And the philosophers are going to come up today, I assure you. Our understanding, it's an emergent property that's shaped by the building blocks that it's made from. So the words we use, the definitions, remember the philosophers were obsessed with definitions, and that carries on into our culture today. What is the ontology of something? What does it mean to be this thing? That helps shape understanding too. It creates paradigms, it creates entire models. And there's one great example, one obvious example is we'll talk about this a little bit more as we go on. It's an idea called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. And I'm probably mispronounced both names, but that's okay. It's this idea that language changes the way we perceive things, not just how we communicate, but how we perceive them in the first place. And there's this experiment, for lack of a better term, where they take people from an English-speaking country, like say the United States, and we show them like all the different shades of blue and say, what do they have in common? And Americans will say, these are all blue. Cool. And then we take people from a Russian-speaking country and we show them the same spectrum and say, what do they have in common? And they'll say, well, this part is dark blue and this part is light blue. Because there is no blue in the Russian language. There's light blue and dark blue. And they're separate, distinct colors, like red and green. in English, and they will fight you on it if you try to point out that they're an entire spectrum. They'll say, no, this is wrong. It's a binary, right? There is light blue, there is dark blue, and while there are shades in between, you can draw a firm demarcation. And from that line, this side is light blue, which is a different color than this side, which is dark blue. There's no overlap, there's no discussion. And even though that's just color theory, that's just understanding of spectrums, it illustrates how, when people have been raised in a paradigm that enforces a certain truth, a certain belief, even if it's not objectively true, like to the Russians, we who say all blues are blue, we're objectively wrong, even though it's a subjective perspective for both groups, you know, because it's just a model. It's not the reality. It's just the description of the reality. But we see that sort of thing in practical politics. People who are like, sex is a binary, when we know it isn't. We can demonstrate it isn't. But they will say it anyway because they were raised with, there is only light blue and dark blue. There is no all blues. But applied to sex.
There's even been a study done, and I don't remember, it's one of the, like, if I remember correctly, I think it's one of the languages of who live in the Amazon, but it was where their words for certain stuff, like we have red and orange, they wouldn't necessarily, they don't recognize red and orange as separate colors either. Like they literally, like, they'll look at one that's like red and then an orange that's kind of close but not quite, and they will not distinguish the difference between them. And it's just like it's crazy. And color is the easiest way to show that, but it's crazy how it makes you think that if that's how if something as simple as color can be viewed like that, what else that we're not necessarily aware of do we color like that too in our heads because of the language?
Yeah, I mean, color is an easy one to demonstrate because you have people point, like Miranda says, we do the same thing with red and pink. Pink is really just light red, but we understand them as distinct colors. And Andrew says there is only light female and dark female.
That would be dark.
It's true. It's transgender for everybody. That's our president's rule, right? Oh my goodness. It's fucking wild. Okay, so I want to do. My goodness, it's so winter here. My goodness. Bree points out there is no orange wavelength of light. I mean, I bet you could. We know what wavelength yellow is, and we know what wavelength red is, or what range of wavelengths they are. I bet we could pick one and say this wavelength is, we could.
I know, like magenta isn't magenta? Like there's magenta and then there's like a purpley color that's not, because on the electromagnetic spectrum, red and blue aren't even close to each other. So there is actually no that color. It's just our I think it is magenta, that there's no actual wavelength for it. It's just the way that our eyes perceive it. Because of red
kind of, yes. There's pluses and minuses to it. So you may have noticed I'm a big fan of purple, right? I've got my outline of my little window, the overlay on this thing, the links at the bottom, which incidentally, if you want to support what we do here, there's links at the bottom. Please help. But like my coffee cup, even, like it's all purpley purple. I love my purples. And purple does exist on the spectrum, right? Like you go Roy G. Biv if you want to do it Newton's way, and you end up over here in the purple side, the violets, right? So that does exist. That's what's beyond blue. Now, when we're making like a color wheel kind of thing, we tend to loop that back around. And we see that if we take crayons or paint or whatever, and we mix red and blue, we get purple. But that's a trick of the brain, interestingly enough, because while there are wavelengths that are purples and violets, when we're mixing colors, we're not actually going past the blue. We're mixing the red and the blue. And our brain is seeing both the red and the blue and is going, aha, it's magenta. It's a purpley purple, it's a neat trick, but it's actually just it's completely made up by I realize all colors are made up by our brains, but there's like a 1-to-1 correlation between the intensity of red photons you get and how much red you see in the thing you're perceiving. Like the Santa hat, for example. This is just red wavelengths, and your brain sees those singular photons, no greens, no blues, and it goes, this is red. But with other things, when our eyes can only perceive the 3 things, unless you're a tetrachromat, in which case you get 4 things, but it's just an extra data point within that normal spectrum anyway. Whatever the case may be, like every other color is your brain going, okay, this is like 50% red, 50% green. What are we going to call that? And we don't know what that is. Like we'll point at an object that's that color. We'll like say, hey, grandma, what is this color? What do we call this? I perceive it's different from this reddish up top. What is this? And then grandma will tell you, like we need to borrow the language for the understanding. And it's the same thing with purple. It's just weird because we're borrowing wavelengths from opposite ends of the visible spectrum and putting them together. And we do the same thing with stage lights. Like you could put a purple gel over a stage light, but you can also make purple light by putting a red gel and a blue gel,
Yeah.
It's neat.
It really is.
Bree's pointing out that, yes, Bree and Sapphire are talking. There is no orange because it's brown. Light brown is what we call orange. If you take orange and darken it, it's just brown. So which is it? Is it light orange or dark brown? So in a way, we're kind of in the same boat as the Russians. Like we're saying these things that are just light and dark of a specific color, we're saying they're 2 separate things. They're distinct things, even though they actually are just light and dark of the same color.
I mean, so, yeah, like with the light blue and dark blue, like it even works with brown because you have like brown and then you have tan, which is a light brown.
Well, sometimes. And also you'll get into it with the color theorists, and this is technically a tangent because now we're off onto color. But there's this idea that you can't combine opposite colors because if you try, you'll just get brown. Like if you try to mix red and green, it turns into brown. In some circumstances, like if you're mixing paints, sometimes, sure. But if you do it with lights, that's not what happens at all. Yeah. You get madder alizarins, you get vermilions, you get all, there's whole ranges of colors, tans and khakis and so forth. Some of them are kind of like a pale brown, which is not to be confused with a light brown, but some of them are definitely a color, even though our brains say those should be contradictory things, It's pretty fucking neat.
Yeah, but our brains are kind of amazing.
I know. Where's AJ? She's going to be so pissed. She missed talk about brains.
Oh, yes.
All right. So today I wanted to start us off with this is a transcript of a TED Talk about this subject. And I think it's a good jumping off place. Obviously, we can't play the TED Talk because copyrights and shit. Sometimes we can get away with it playing a TED Talk. Sometimes, if I can interrupt it enough or it's broadcast on like a different channel other than TED, but not always. And I don't know which is the case for this talk. So it's better to just do the transcript. So it starts out with, there are about 7,000 languages spoken around the world, and they all have different sounds, vocabularies, and structures. But do they shape the way we think? Cognitive scientist Leah Boroditsky holy shit, these names, shares examples of language from an Aboriginal community in Australia that uses cardinal directions instead of left and right to the multiple words for blue in Russian that we were just talking about that suggest the answer is a resounding yes. Quote, the beauty of linguistic diversity is that it reveals to us just how ingenious and how flexible the human mind is, Boroditsky says. Human minds have invented not one cognitive universe, but 7,000. And this starts to get back into philosophy. Like, is the thing the way we understand it, or does it have an existence separate from our own understanding? And for some reason, this, maybe it's my tism, but it seems to me the universe was here, the earth was here before there were humans here to understand and therefore make them be. So clearly, the existence of a thing is distinct from our perception and understanding of the thing. But this is still a topic in philosophy. There's still people making arguments for supernatural beings based on this. They're saying, well, there must be a mind to observe a reality for the reality to be real, which is undemonstrated backwards thinking in the first place, but that's their argument. Therefore, there must be a universal mind that exists beyond space and time to do the observing.
Yeah.
It's a wild fucking claim, but it's still there.
Yeah, I mean, you would think they've kind of moved past that by now, but no.
What we have, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the
Well,
point. Is especially with precept arguments, it's to be intentionally regressive. And also, speak of the devil. AJ's here to dunk on us all with 2 languages plus ASL. So 3 languages, but you can't really say you speak ASL, can you?
That's the way it's referred to usually, but yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. Oh, but I do digress. Okay, so the speaker says, I'll be speaking to you using language because I can. This is one of these magical abilities that we humans have. And you're going to find out they're a fan of mine, actually, because, listen, we can transmit really complicated thoughts to one another. So what I'm doing right now is I'm making sounds with my mouth as I'm exhaling. I'm making tones and hisses and puffs, and these are creating air vibrations. These vibrations are traveling through the air to you. They're hitting your eardrums. Granted, in your case, there's a few other technological steps involved, but they're hitting your eardrums, and then your brain takes those vibrations from your eardrums and transforms them into thoughts, I hope. Now, does that sound familiar? Does that sound like something that I say all the damn time? Now, it's true, she could have had this thought on her own. It's not impossible. I mean, and this is the thing, the big holdup for this idea that language limits cognition. It can create barriers to thinking outside the boxes provided, but it doesn't prohibit thinking outside the boxes provided. It makes it harder, but every idea we have, someone came up with. So it has to be possible to come up with new ideas. And that remains possible just because I came up with an idea that speech is sort of an assisted form of telepathy doesn't mean someone else can't come up with the same idea. But also, it's not impossible that this person listens to our show. You never know. You never know. Jester, who does listen to this show, said this is a $5 super chat. Thank you, Jester. And says, white and black are opposites. One is always absence or inclusion of all color, but in different mediums, they are their own opposites, which is pretty fucking neat when you think about it, because when you're talking about light spectrums, all the wavelengths are in white light. But when you're talking about color, none of the colors. It's the reverse. So a white object would be like black light, which is to say no light, because true black, not a black light like a UV light, but like a light that has no light. It's not a light, which is weird. No wavelengths, no spectrums. But when you're talking about paint, when you're talking about color, it's all the colors. When you mix all the colors together, you get black, in theory. So yeah, it's pretty neat how they're opposites from each other, but they're actually their own opposite, which is to say, they're kind of the same thing in different ways. They're like 0 and infinity. Neither one really is a thing that actually exists. They're a concept that needs to be there for everything else we consider in our model to make sense. But 0, by definition, is nothing. There's nothing there. It's the numerical representation of nothing, which is the reciprocal of infinity. It has to be there, but there's nothing there. And that's a weird concept we've come up with too. So yeah, black and white are kind of like that. It's fun. Right, it says, lady, I speak 2 languages, English and bad English. And it's the legendary Corbin Dallas. I had a job a couple of years ago where I finally got, they gave you an employee ID that was also an RFID card. It was a chip to access the secured areas with the gates and fences and shit. It had like a MasterCard chip in it, so you could get your paycheck deposited onto your employee ID card. It had a magnetic stripe, so you could scan it for the MasterCard. It like, and they called it a multi-pass. Of like,
that is so awesome.
On it, and it said multi-pass, and I was so fucking excited. It turned out the job itself was hellish, and I could not stay. And also, I changed my name immediately after, but never mind that. Still.
Still, multi-pass.
Yeah. All right, I digress. We people do come here for the tangents. You may have noticed. And we love to see it. But one plus, one minus, depending on how you want to conceptualize it, is I do try to cover a topic with these shows, and I have very little time to do it, so I have to try to manage the tangents. And the juggling is not always easy. So we will get back to this in a moment, but first I want to take a quick break and just remind everybody why this stuff matters. What happens if we don't think about the things, if we don't come to understand our understandings and why we understand things the way we do? We become victim to the people who want to tell us how we should think and believe and act and live, or not live, as the case may be. So enjoy.
I have a problem with this stuff being normalized across the spectrum, and specifically, like, why push this on kids? Why introduce this to kids?
I am a depraved wretch. I am a great sinner. I'm a worm, completely undeserving of any love or any grace. I'm nothing.
You're incapable of being a good person. You're an evil person. You're a terrible person. At the core fabric of who you are. That's why we need laws. We need laws because we're bad people. All of us are bad people.
You can't spell Pride Month without demon. PRIDEMONTH.
If we don't know who the women are, because they are just people, then we won't be able to pull the women up to equality with men.
We have to try to limit the harm. And that means reducing or keeping down the number of people who transition. And that's for 2 reasons. One of them is that every one of those people is a person who's been damaged. But the second one is every one of those people is basically, a huge problem to a sane world.
Transgenderism must be eradicated.
The LGBT, transgender, grooming our children's minds is a national security threat. We need to hold people for treason, start having some public hearings, and start executing people.
I will use whatever gives me victory. I don't care about the truth, and I don't care about the law. I care about one thing, the control.
But then they rigged the election, and now we won, so I'm going to be your president.
Then what happened is they rigged the election, and I became president, so that was a good thing.
I agreed with many, many things you said during in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you were running for president. But I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian.
I just want to say I feel good about the Republican Party. I feel good about where we're going as a nation. We're killing all the right people and we're cutting your taxes.
It was actually a tremendous blessing to these children for them to be killed and go to heaven and be with God.
We've been hoodwinked. We've been taken in by an ideology crafted by creeps and then pushed on children.
Stop letting people pressure you into thinking.
If they die, they die.
I want to be ignorant, honestly.
Being a Christian doesn't exclude us from experiencing spiritual dryness.
We're bad people. All of us are bad people.
And if you're experiencing spiritual dryness and don't want to be bad people, you can get a water filter to help with that. Get all the water you could ask for at epicwaterfilters.com. Enter code number 15. I'll do the actual ad later, but like, the spiritual dryness always gets me. But I have a stainless steel bottle. They have neoprene, like bioplastic ones. They have a lot of nifty bottles, and the bottles are cool. And also the filters do a good job, but we'll get to that later. The spiritual dryness always gets me. Oh, goodness. All right. Miranda says, why introduce religion to kids? That is a whole ass topic for another day, but hopefully the video lays out some of the nefarious motives behind the nonsense and chicanery. Oh my goodness. All right, so let's where the hell were we? Speaking in new language because I can. Right, air vibrations, assisted telepathy. So transcript again, the crowd laughs. And there was much rejoicing. Okay, the presenter goes on. I hope that's happening. So because of this ability, this telepathy, we humans are able to transmit our ideas across vast reaches of space and time. We're able to transmit knowledge across minds. I can put a bizarre new idea in your mind right now. I could say, imagine a jellyfish waltzing in a library while thinking about quantum mechanics. Now, if everything has gone relatively well in your life so far, you probably hadn't thought that thought before. But now I've just made you think it through language. Now, of course, there isn't just one language in the world. There are about 7,000 languages spoken around the world, and all the languages differ from one another in all kinds of ways. Some languages have different sounds. They have different vocabularies. They also have different structures. Very importantly, different structures. And this begs the question, does the language we speak shape the way we think? Now, this is an ancient question. People have been speculating about this question forever. Charlemagne, the Holy Roman Emperor, said, to have a second language is to have a second soul. A strong statement that language crafts reality. But on the other hand, Shakespeare has Juliet say, what's in a name? A rose by any other name would smell as sweet. And that suggests that maybe language doesn't create reality. These arguments have gone back and forth for thousands of years. And there is some truth to this. I want to pause here and point out that once again, our ancient philosopher friends did get into this and all the dialogues and discussions and debates over definitions, the ontological meanings of concepts. They didn't really ever firmly settle this concept of this question of, does a concept create the reality or does the reality create the concept? Because we discover concepts, we discover things and then form words to describe them, right? We don't invent them, put them into words, and then make them exist in reality. If they did, we'd all be millionaires riding unicorns to work, or not work, as the case may be. We'd have spaceships that we could take from here to our colonies on Alpha Centauri or whatever, right? Yeah. So just imagining something and putting it into words doesn't make it real.
Some of us would be mermaids. Yeah. Some of us would be mermaids instead.
Details. But likewise, taking something that exists and putting it into words that don't describe it correctly doesn't change the nature of the thing being described. You know, that's why science is the way it is, where we're constantly abandoning and rebuilding models that are closer and closer and closer to real reality. That's how it works, is we test it against objective reality. Because our words can get close, but the map is never the same as the place. Only the place is the perfect map of the place. So yeah.
Yeah,
but
it's
that's
just
probably my bias.
no, I tend to agree with that. So yeah.
In any case, this stuff didn't really become a thing until the 18th or 19th centuries, and later, some would argue. But the earliest philosophers did think about this quite a bit. That's why they got so hung up on definitions and concepts and the ontology of things. It helped shape much of the way we think about thinking today. So it gets kind of meta. It very much does. Let's see. But until recently, I need to make it big again, don't I? Big, make my monster grow. Until recently, there hasn't been any kind of data to help us decide either way. Well, there has, but we'll just go with the presentation for now. Recently, in my lab and some other labs around the world, we've started doing research. And now we have actual scientific data to weigh on this question. So let me tell you about some of my favorite examples. I'll start with an example from an Aboriginal community in Australia that I had the chance to work with. These are the Cook Teore people. They live in Porumporra at the very west edge of Cape York. What's cool about the Cook Teore is in Cook Teore, god damn these people. Like, say the name once, but keep doing it. Jesus Christ. They don't use words like left and right. Instead, everything is in cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. Now, this is fascinating to me because as a young child, I had a very great degree of difficulty with left and right because I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. There's nothing objective about it. Like, if I say my coffee cup is to my left and then I turn around, that's no longer correct. Now it's to my right. Why are we making reference to things that aren't relevant to anybody else? Like you looking through my camera, my coffee cup is to your right. Or I guess my camera's mirrored, so maybe it's to your left. Whatever. The point is, it doesn't make sense to make reference to things in left and right to me. And so I was like, why can't we refer to things as north and south and east and west? Like directions that don't move. Like the coffee cup is, 1 meter north. Oh, well, we're indoors. We don't always know where north and south and west are. Well, that's a you problem, bestie. Maybe get good at orienteering, And this is a culture that actually does things that way because they don't have a concept of left and right, but they do use normal objective world orientation. They don't need a left and right because they're good at doing that, and they're good at doing that because they do that. But that's just my tism. Maybe they have the same tism.
It makes me curious on if they have a better sense of direction than most people because they're always focusing on north, east, south, west as opposed to right and left. And you think if someone's giving you driving directions, I want north, east, south, and west. Like, that's the easiest way to tell me how to get there instead of, okay, now go to your right and then go to, because you can get super mixed up that way, especially before GPS. So it makes me wonder if they have a better just general sense of direction than we do. Just because they've thought like that their whole lives.
Well, part of that has to do with the way you experience the world, right? Like if you're telling someone driving directions, you're not necessarily thinking of like, okay, I go to 3rd Street and then I turn north and then I go to 5th Avenue and then I turn west or whatever the case may be. You're thinking of the moves that you yourself do. You're replaying the experience and conveying the information of the experience to someone else who wants to retrace your route. So you say, go to the 3rd stoplight and turn left. It's not objective, and it only works if you're replaying the route, but that's the way the memory is stored, you know?
Yeah.
And that has to do with how the language works, because that's shaping our
Mhm.
thoughts, and so shaping our memories too. And
Yeah.
it's really, really neat when you don't think that way, because, like, as many of you know, I was a repossession agent for 3 years, and you start to learn cities, right? Like you get to learn when you do a repossession, you have to report, at least here in New York, you have to report to the most local police. So if you do it in a city, you go to the city PD. If you do it in the countryside, you go to the sheriffs or the state police, depending on who is closer, whatever the case may be. And you have to do that so that if the car owner tries to call the police and say their car was stolen, the police know actually it was repossessed, so they don't waste resources and shit. So that's why you have to do that. And so you get to learn where the police departments are, and you start to learn where the major roads are. And then you start to get this map in your head of where you are in the city relative to the major roads, because you can't learn every street in every city. That's just not viable. But what you can do is understand you're on the southwest side of town, and that Route 5 cuts across the southern side of town and then joins with the main north-south road that goes right to the police department. And so once you reach that certain point, bloop, there's a map in your head. And then you can say, without even knowing which direction you're facing, if we go west, we're going to run into Route 5 that'll take us to the main road that'll take us to the PD. You don't have to know how many blocks. You don't have to know which exact street you're on. You just have this general layout of where you are relative to everything else. And you can navigate without knowing anything about the specific streets you're on. And it's freaking cool. And it's very useful, and it's very time saving. And the first few times it happens, it's like unlocking a superpower. It's like, where did that come from? You know? So it's pretty neat. And that's because of thinking in objective directions. I imagine that thinking in different formats unlocks different abilities, because all these things, all of our thinking, and this is what I'm trying to get through throughout this entire series, is our thinking is an emergent property of our understandings. The things we think, the things we're capable of articulating, are the result of that weave of understanding we're generating from the building blocks of how we understand things. And it's fucking neat. But being aware of our limits is key to building something bigger, you know?
Which is kind of it's kind of ridiculous that there's so many people out there that are not aware of their limits on stuff like this. Like they're not. And of course they think they have it all figured out by this point, and they don't.
Well, I mean, a big part of it has to do with this idea of there is an absolute truth, and I know what that is, because I was told it by a person who read it to me out of a storybook, where there's, you know, a dirt man and a rib woman who got fooled by a talking snake to eat a magical fruit, and that's why the ghost in charge had to incarnate by making love to a young virgin so that he could be born, so he could sacrifice himself to himself in order to get around the rules he was in charge of, because of the misdeeds of the rib woman fooled by the talking snake. And now the magical carpenter ghost needs to live inside you to protect you from the curse that he placed upon. It gets pretty ridiculous, you know? But in order to believe that, you have to have this underlying built-in concept of there is an absolute reality, and you know what it is. It cannot be wrong. It's unquestionable, and it has to be unquestionable, because if you can question even a little bit, it immediately falls apart into nonsense.
And yeah, and for some reason, people who do claim to have the absolute truth, you will never catch them saying, I don't know, because they can't say that.
Well, it varies. Like you get the lay people who are used to the authoritarian structure, who are used to being told what they think by people higher up, by people in charge. They'll say, I don't know. but my pastor does, because my pastor has the direct line to God. I can feel the presence of God, but God does not reveal truths to me, that sort of thing, right? So they have the connection, but not the direct hotline. It's the higher ups who do that. And it might not, maybe it's not the pastor. Maybe we have to call the bishop. Maybe it's not the bishop. Maybe we have to call the cardinal. It's whatever. But somebody's got a hotline to God. So somebody can tell you what it is that this all-powerful being wants, who for some reason can't just tell you because it would be too hard or something. I digress, though.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do not understand it. I've never understood it, and I don't think I ever will. I just don't understand how people can think that way, but I guess it's just because of the way I think and the way my brain works. I'm like, how can you possibly just follow along? Like, it doesn't compute with me.
It's one of those things. It's like, it's trying to understand how another person thinks because their underlying framework is different. And that's why the churches in particular, but other groups to a lesser extent, are so intent on indoctrinating children. You have to get them while they're in that frame of mind where whatever an adult says is at least plausible. Santa Claus, Tooth Fairy, Easter Bunny, whatever. You throw religion in there, whatever the religion is, and maybe it'll stick. Maybe it won't. But that's the only chance in hell you've got. It's either that or hold a scimitar to their neck and say, convert or die. You know? It's wild. If only John Hudson were the hotline to God, we could just, John could just show us. John could just, or anyone could just show us, or God could just show us. If God could just communicate directly. The fact we need apologists that God, the all-powerful being, can't just speak for himself, that kind of gives the game away too. But I digress. Let's see. Right. North, south, east, and west. And when I say everything, I really mean everything. You would say something like, oh, there's an ant on your southwest leg. Or move your cup to the northeast a little bit. The northeast even. In fact, the way you say hello in Keok Theore is you say, which way are you going? Like we say, how's it going? They say, where are you going? And the answer should be northeast in the far distance. How about you? How is it going? Like, it's just a greeting. No one intends for there to be a real answer. There's just a traditional answer,
But it does make me curious how that response came to be that response.
I imagine it's a similar process, but seeing this other culture do something that stands out to us as being so counterintuitive makes us see that the things we do without even thinking about it follow the same pattern, actually. So imagine you're walking around your day. Every person you greet, you have to report your heading direction. But that would actually get you oriented pretty fast, wouldn't it? Because you literally couldn't get past hello if you didn't know which way you were going. In fact, people who speak languages like this stay oriented really well. They stay oriented better than we used to think humans could. We used to think that humans were worse than other creatures because of some biological excuse. Oh, we don't have magnets in our beaks or in our scales. No, if your language and your culture trains you to do it, you actually can do it. There are humans around the world who stay oriented really well. And just
that
to get us
answered
in
my
agreement.
question from earlier. Yeah, that answered my question from earlier. Yeah, like, that's really cool though.
Yeah. If you get used to doing a thing, then it's very similar to walking. It's not muscle memory in the same way, but it's similar how it becomes, let's say, second nature, for lack of a better term. And just to get us in agreement about how different this is from the way we do it, I want you all to close your eyes for a second and point southeast. Keep your eyes closed. Okay. And again, transcript. Okay. So you can open your eyes. I see you guys pointing there, 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 there. I don't know which way it is myself. Well, I do. It's over there because the sun, right? It's not important. It's that way though. You have not been a lot of help. So let's say the accuracy in this room is not very high. This is a big difference in cognitive ability across languages, right? Where one group, very distinguished group like you folks, doesn't know which way is which. But in another group, I could ask a 5-year-old and they would know. There are also really big differences in how people think about time. So here I have pictures of my grandfather at different ages, and again, transcripts. So just imagine my grandfather at different ages. And if I ask an English speaker to organize time, they might lay it out from left to right. This has to do with writing direction. If you were a speaker of Hebrew or Arabic, you might go in the opposite direction from right to left. But how would the Kuktheore, this Aboriginal group I just told you about, do it? They don't use words like right and left. So let me give you a hint. When we sat people facing south, they organized from left to right. When we sat them facing north, they organized from right to left. When we sat them facing east, time came towards the body. So what's the pattern? East to west, right? So for them, time doesn't actually get locked on the body at all. It gets locked on the landscape, east to west. So for me, if I'm facing this way, then time goes this way. And if I'm facing that way, then time goes this way. If I'm facing that way, then time goes this way. Very egocentric of me to have the direction of time chase me around every time I turn my body. But for the Kuktheore, time is locked on the landscape. It's a dramatically different way of thinking about time. Here's another really smart human trait. Suppose I ask you how many penguins there are. Well, I bet you know how you'd solve that problem if you solved it. You went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You count them. You named each one with a number, and the last number you said was the number of penguins. That's a little trick you're taught to use as kids. You learn the number list and you learn how to apply it, which is a linguistic trick. Some languages don't do this because some languages don't have exact number words. They're languages that don't have a word like 7 or a word like 8. In fact, people who speak these languages don't count, and they have trouble keeping track of exact quantities. So, for example, if I asked you to match this number of penguins to the same number of ducks, you would do that by counting. But folks who don't have that linguistic trait can't do that. Language also differs in how they divide up the color spectrum. And this is what we were talking about earlier. The visual world. Some languages have lots of words for colors. Some have only a couple of words, light and dark. And languages differ in where they put boundaries between colors. So, for example, in English, there's a word for blue that covers all the colors that you can see on the screen, which I guess would be like a gradient of blues. But in Russian, there isn't a single word. Instead, Russian speakers have to differentiate between light blue, голубой, and dark blue, синие. So Russians have this lifetime of experience in language, distinguishing between these two colors. When we test people's ability to perceptually discriminate these colors, what we find is that Russian speakers are faster across this linguistic boundary. They're faster to be able to tell the difference between a light and dark blue. And when you look at people's brains as they're looking at colors, say you have the colors shifting slowly from light to dark blue, the brains of people who use different words for light and dark blue will give a surprised reaction as the colors shift from light to dark, as if, oh, something has categorically changed. Whereas the brains of English speakers, for example, that don't make this categorical distinction, don't give that surprise because nothing is categorically changing. I am injuring Lawrence with my awful pronunciation. My apologies.
Hey, you're probably better than me. I cannot pronounce crap.
I was educated in the United States. That's my excuse. Also, I never took Russian. I took 1 year of French and 3 years of German. And then a little bit of random Latin on the side. Languages have all kinds of structural quirks. This is one of my favorites. Lots of languages have grammatical gender. Every noun gets assigned a gender, often masculine or feminine. Often, but not always, there are genders in language that aren't either of those, but never mind that for now. And these genders differ across languages. So, for example, the sun is feminine in German, but masculine in Spanish. The moon, the reverse. Could this actually have any consequences for how people think? Do German speakers think of the sun as somehow more female-like and the moon somehow more male-like? Actually, it turns out that's the case. So if you ask German and Spanish speakers to say, describe a bridge, like a one that I assume there's a picture for, bridge happens to be grammatically feminine in German and grammatically masculine in Spanish. So German speakers are more likely to say the bridge is beautiful or elegant, stereotypical feminine words, whereas the Spanish speakers will be more likely to say the bridge is strong or long, masculine words. Languages also differ in how they describe events, right? You take an event like an accident. In English, it's fine to say, he broke the vase. In a language like Spanish, you might be more likely to say, the vase broke, or the vase broke itself, because it's an accident. You wouldn't say someone did it. In English, quite weirdly, we can say things like, I broke my arm. Now, in lots of languages, you couldn't use that construction unless you are a lunatic and you went out looking to break your arm and succeeded. If it was an accident, you would use a different construction. Now, this has consequences. So people who speak different languages will pay attention to different things depending on what their language usually requires them to do. So we showed the same accident to English speakers and Spanish speakers. English speakers will remember who did it because English requires you to say, he did it, he broke the vase. Whereas Spanish speakers might be less likely to remember who did it if it's an accident, but they're more likely to remember that it was an accident. They're more likely to remember the intention. So two people watch the same event, witness the same crime, but end up remembering different things about that event. This has implications, of course, for eyewitness testimony. It also has implications for blame and punishment. So if you take English speakers and I just show you someone breaking a vase and I say, he broke the vase, as opposed to the vase broke. Even though you can witness it yourself, you can watch the video, you can watch the crime against this vase, you will punish someone more, you will blame someone more if I just said he broke it, as opposed to it broke. So the language guides our reasoning about events.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was saying about how even like the color difference, how we might recognize that that's one way that our language shapes our thinking. But yeah, something as in guilt over something, whether your language shapes that or not, or how you view events, like that's even more, obviously a much more profound thing, which also goes back to why eyewitness testimony is like the least reliable out of all of it.
Well, for testimony, you do want to see what a person saw themselves, but like other evidence, it's so wild. So there's an apologist who fancies himself a pro detective, and other people have taken his nonsense apart. Sergeant Skeptic is a good one, for example. Michael Beverly went off on him for a while. But his whole thing is we have direct evidence and indirect evidence. And the only direct evidence is eyewitness testimony, which is why eyewitness testimony is the best evidence possible. Except, no, literally every other kind of evidence is better. All of them. From, camera footage from security cameras to DNA to okay, in fairness, there are some bullshit evidences like hair follicle analysis, like polygraphs. There's some things that are put forward as scientific determiners that actually aren't based in any science at all. So, but as far as things that can be scientifically verified as having a means of describing what really happened in a situation under question, all the evidence is better than eyewitness testimony. But say, Lovey. Theo makes an interesting point. I don't feel the sun or a bridge to be more feminine because it has a feminine article. But here's the thing, like with the sun is just going to be the sun, right? You can perceive it however you want, but it continues to exist. But when it comes to a bridge, when you're describing a bridge, you might consider it in certain ways like the author proposed. But if your culture considers a bridge to be a certain thing, then you're going to have that, or a higher chance of having an underlying concept of what a bridge ought to look like when you design one. And so in cultures where you have feminine bridges, you're going to end up with more elegant, more graceful bridges with more architecture to them, more artistry, more design. Whereas in cultures with masculine bridges, you're going to end up with maybe there's some art to it, but it'll be more focused on strength, rather than beauty. And so the way the culture conceptualizes things shapes the things the culture produces. And in some cases, that's unavoidable. It certainly wasn't intentional because you can't really guide the evolution of a language. You can introduce new terms, but you can't really force concepts to be thought of a certain way or not as an individual. But it is going to have an impact on how the culture at large thinks of things, how it considers things. And so the things it produces will be shaped by that through the individuals. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, it really, yeah, language has always fascinated me, and especially how it changes our thinking on stuff. Yeah, it's really cool.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I brought up that saying earlier that a person who speaks only one language understands none. Because one of the things, before I even got enough of a foreign language to be able to really, so I only had the 1 year of French, but by the end of that year, I was able to think in French. I didn't even do it intentionally. It just started happening one day because certain trains of thought made more sense in French. They were more efficient in French. And so I started thinking in French. And I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. And I wish I could have continued, but my schools, public schools are awful. It doesn't matter. When you understand two different structures like that, you can see the areas where they don't match, where the language changes the way you think. It's really, really evident when you speak multiple languages. Like the way you count, for example, in French, there is no 80. When you get to 80, you say 4 20s. And that's a fairly minor thing, but it can change your concept of things because whereas in our decimal focused system here in the US, we tend to think in terms of tens. Like if you buy something for $9.99, it's under $10. And so we just think of it in a unit of $10, for example. But in French, it's units of 20s. So it would be half of a standard unit of money, So it's,
I mean, yeah, and it's like in German, like when you're talking double digits, it's like you would say something like 5 and 20 as opposed to 25, which is it's a little weird trying to get used to that because you see a number and you want to read it left to right like 25, but then you're like, no, I need to reverse that and say 5 and 20 instead.
And there's a lot of leftovers in English for that kind of thinking. That was one of those things where people introduced concepts from other language with the intention of making English more efficient, more effective. And to some extent it worked, but you still have leftovers. Like if you ask somebody what time it is, they might say it's 1/4 of. What the fuck does that mean? Well, 1/4 of an hour is 15 minutes, and of means you're not quite to the hour. If it were 15 minutes after the hour, they'd say 1/4 after. It took me fucking forever to decipher what my grandmother meant when she said that. And I'm like, cool, which hour though? Because as a child, I couldn't read the damn clock yet. Like, you could just tell me what time it is instead of speaking in fucking riddles. Of course, as a child, time didn't mean much to me other than, is it lunchtime? Is it dinner time? I knew what times those happened at. Oh, well. Okay. So the presenter says, now I've given you a few examples of how language can profoundly shape the way we think, and it does so in a variety of ways. So language can have big effects, like we saw with space and time, where people can lay out space and time in completely different coordinate frames from each other. Language can also have really deep effects. That's what we saw with the case of numbers. Having counting words in your language, having number words, opens up the whole world of mathematics. Of course, if you don't count, you can't do algebra. You can't do any of the things that would be required to build a room like this or make this broadcast, right?
Mhm.
This little trick of number words gives you a stepping stone into a whole cognitive realm. Language can also have really early effects, like we saw in the case of color. These are really simple, basic perceptual decisions. We make thousands of them all the time, and yet language is getting in there and fusing even with these tiny little perceptual decisions that we make. Language can have really broad effects. So the case of grammatical gender may be a little silly, but at the same time, grammatical gender applies to all the nouns. That means that language can show you how you're thinking about anything that can be named by a noun. And that's a lot of stuff. And finally, I gave you an example of how language can shape things that have personal weight to us. Ideas like blame and punishment or eyewitness memory. These are important things in our daily lives. Now, the beauty of linguistic diversity is that it reveals just how ingenious and how flexible the human mind is. Human minds have invented not one cognitive universe, but 7,000. There are 7,000 languages spoken around the world, and we can create many more. Languages, of course, are living things, things that we can hone and change to suit our needs. They're our tools. We can use them. They're there to serve us.
Mhm.
The tragic thing is that we're losing so much of this linguistic diversity all the time. We're losing about one language a week, and by some estimates, half of the world's languages will be gone in the next 100 years. And the even worse news is that right now, almost everything we know about the human mind and human brain is based on studies of usually American English-speaking undergrads at universities, which excludes almost all humans. So what we know about the human mind is actually incredibly narrow and biased, and science can do better. So the presenter says, I'm going to leave you with this final thought. I've told you about how speakers of different languages think differently. But of course, that's not about how people think elsewhere. It's about how you think. It's how the language that you speak shapes the way you think. This goes to what we talked about in a previous episode. Bias. There is a bias built into the way you think. Like we said at the beginning, the formula you're expected to operate in shapes the limits of your conception, your perception, and your action. And challenging that, pushing against those walls, stepping outside those boxes, and building your own bridges to new understandings are how we weave a greater understanding and do something better than just what we're told. That would have been a great outro, but we've got 10 minutes left. There is plenty more to cover, but I wanted to pause at the end of the topic here because it seems like a good place to reflect on what we've covered so far.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts?
It's one of those things that it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. Like how to think that the way that you learn language as a kid, and it doesn't change really unless you learn another language, is on how greatly that shapes how you think about just about everything. It's kind of crazy to realize that things can be so centered around language, on how your brain works and how you process things.
Well, it does make sense because, like, while we like to think of language as being as transparent as possible. I can take an idea and I can just send it to you by translating it into language. Of course, it will be colored a bit by that lens of transmission. Just like if I do it with light, it's going to be limited by the spectrum of the camera I'm using, you know? But we like to think of it as transparent as possible. But that's not really how it works. Like, if, for example, we need to build places for people to sit down. If we live in a culture where the only chairs we ever see have 4 legs, we're going to build 4-legged chairs because that's the only concept we have to work with. But if we live in a culture where there are 3-legged chairs, then we'll build 3-legged chairs, or 1-legged chairs with a big round foot at the bottom, then we'll build those. And if we have multiple understandings, and this is the key, if we have multiple understandings and we understand, we internalize this concept under all concepts, this meta conception that things don't have to be the way we have always seen them. They could have 4 legs or 3 legs or 1 leg. Then it becomes possible to consider, what if we do it an entirely different way? What if we build a chair with 5 legs? What if we build a chair with 20 legs? Maybe it's inefficient, but there don't have to be limits. So the more paradigms we can come to understand, the less walled in we are by the concepts that have been given to us, and the better able we are to create something new. Even if it's not efficient, it gives us the ability to do it, and we can learn something from that. And sometimes we find something much better than we had ever thought possible. That's where discoveries come from, is challenging what's accepted and doing something new. Maybe 90% of the time it doesn't work at all, but sometimes it does.
And the times it does is basically it's worth doing. It's worth trying to find something new.
Archimedes figuring out buoyancy and displacement was literally trial and error. He was trying to figure out how to do it. He could not do it mathematically. So finally he came to his practical experiment. Let's just put it in a bathtub and measure how much the water moves. It was an act of desperation because he was out of options. It was a result of ideation. It was, like all mathematical discoveries, if he hadn't thought of it, eventually someone would have. But he was the first to think of it because he was able to get out of that box laid down by Pythagoras saying there has to be math first. You have to conceptualize before you can actualize. And he said, no, fuck that. I'm going to figure this out, and I'll make the formula that explains it after I can prove it can be done reliably.
Yeah, one of the most interesting things I always find, slight tangent, on things that were discovered accidentally and basically out of an act of desperation is the Planck constant, because he put that in the equation expecting it to come out to 0 and it didn't.
You mean the cosmological constant?
No, the Planck constant from Max Planck.
Okay. Let me check on that because I want to make sure. Concepts, right? What is the Planck constant? Postulated by Max Planck in 1900 as a proportionally constant need to explain experimental blackbody. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a number in physics that describes the smallest chunk or packet of energy of light. In other words, it is the lowest energy photon you can generate, the smallest energy, the longest wavelength that can be emitted. Because while we can conceptualize light, radiation, wavelengths, however you want to phrase it, as being as long as anything, and we can actually find photons that are for different reasons because of metric expansion. You can emit a photon at a certain wavelength and then stretch it to any other wavelength. But emission only happens in certain packets. And that's the thing of photons interacting with matter. It can only happen at specific wavelengths. And so Planck's constant is the lowest possible energy level where you still get a photon emitted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and it's just really cool because he was trying to work out this equation and he could not get it to work, so he threw this variable in there, fully expecting to come out to zero, and it didn't. And that kind of solved the problem. There's been a lot, like Irish DC said. He said, it's mad to think about. To think a lot of scientific discoveries is literally throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. Sometimes you have to, and sometimes it works, and it's really surprising when it does.
Oh yeah, a lot of people have pointed out over the centuries that science is less one person who a light bulb goes off and they go eureka, as it is a person doing something and expecting typical results and going, huh, that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. Like, Newton, we figured out absorption lines and spectra, which led us to what now is quantum theory. This idea that photons are emitted by and absorbed by matter, which we didn't think was how it worked at the time. Newton, working with his optics, doing his optical physics, was like, oh, look, spectrums. Oh, look, there's lines missing in my spectrums. That's weird.
Mm-hmm.
And that led us into the interaction between chemistry and optical physics, Totally unexpected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just... Yeah. I agree, it's really cool.
Hell yeah. Deviant says, I speak 1.5 languages. I can read 6 and I understand 3.5 spoken. I can appreciate the sentiment. Like, I can understand a lot more French and German than I can actually say. Like, I know the words when I hear them, but I can't call them up when I want to say them,
Yeah. Because, I mean, like, I took German for years, and I deal with German. I can read it just fine. I can ask me to speak it, and I'm a little choppy.
Honestly,
because,
that's
like,
true of every language, I suspect, because it's true of English too. Like, I mean, my vocabulary is a little bit more verbose than the average bear's, but there are a lot of words that I can hear someone say and understand perfectly, but I will never intuitively say on my own because they just don't come naturally to me because of where my thought formulations come from, So it's...
Yeah.
That's how it always works, is we can always understand more than we can actually articulate natively for every language. And so I expect that makes sense that it would be true in other languages. For example, water, right? Like, we mean many different things by water. We could mean oceans. We could mean the liquid substance that fills the oceans. We could mean fresh water. We could mean rainfall. We could mean the solid version, snow and ice, or steam, for example. Or we could mean our partner who helps me produce these dang shows. Hey folks, I've been working hard on my health, and so far I've lost over 140 pounds. A huge part of good health is hydration. That's why I'm thrilled to partner with Epic Water Filters. Check this out. Not only can you say goodbye to expensive bottled water, but these filters are made in the US, so no tariffs, and they're made to fit your life. From these lovely pitchers I can fill from, to sink units, to portable filters that fit in your reusable bottle. With Epic, I can refill from nature's water sources and not have to worry about bacteria and whatnot. But also, send back a used filter to be responsibly recycled, and they'll send you a free replacement, saving you and the earth even more. Want to save a ton of money, be healthier, and build a better world? Head to epicwaterfilters.com and enter code EMBER15 at checkout for 15% off. Don't settle for random water. Upgrade to Epic. I had to get that in there somewhere.
You do have to watch out for the dihydrogen monoxide.
It's true. It's everywhere. Oh, I can't wait till. So on this software, I can only have so many video clips pre-uploaded, which means I can't completely pirate AJ's video clip. So it'll have to wait. It'll have to wait. I do wanted to leave y'all with one particular thought that I already had pre-brought up, but I can't quite seem to locate the damn thing now. I have too many windows open, as is often the case. But it had something to do with a philosopher that preceded Plato. And I'm trying to find where the hell the reference to it was, so maybe I can remember why I wanted to bring it up. It's something to do with grammatical categories. Oh, right. Heraclitus. So Plato, Creoltus, all of these guys, the sophists, the definition seekers, they were all influenced by this much earlier philosopher whom we only have fragments still remaining of. He was called the crying philosopher because we did the superhero names thing back at the time. It's a whole thing, but it was his idea that things don't exist as independent, discrete things, but they're always a balance between opposition of forces, sort of like we were talking about with history in the earlier episode. Again, all these shows build on concepts from earlier episodes, and it's fucking neat. But TLDR, the idea there was that the capitalist age is the conflict between the leftover forces of feudalism and the emerging forces of democracy. And so we're fighting feudalism versus democracy, and that gives us capitalism. And then in the next age, it'll be the democratic age. We're starting to move into that, but we're not there yet. And that'll be the forces of capitalism versus whatever comes next. Let's call it equality, right? Or something. It's just that sort of thing. That's a historical concept. In a linguistic concept, this really comes into play because it frames the way we understand things as binary, dialectical opposites. And that frames thinking to quite a degree when everything in nature is a spectrum. But in logic, we want there to be only two options: identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle, on or off. And so when our language, our thinking is framed in terms of logic first, we tend to put things into binaries even when it doesn't actually apply. It shapes not only our language, but our thinking at a sublingual level. And it's been part of our philosophical understanding, our logical underpinnings of why logic makes sense since before we even formalized logic. But that, my dear friends, is a topic for another time. Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you all for being here. Remember, we've got holiday stuff coming up all this week. We're going to finish Atheist Advent, and there's more topics still to come. It'll be fantastic. So remember to subscribe, remember to join us, and keep an eye out for bonus shows. Right now, I'm planning to do an adult Bible study on Tuesday evening, but it could move. One never knows. We'll see. But thank you all so much for joining us. And as always, remember, you don't have to let other people tell you how to think and understand the world, because you can do that for yourself, because you are better than religion. Toodles. Thanks to all our patrons and top-level members for November. Miranda, Karen Butcher, Jessica the Transmetal Alchemist, Robin Webster, Maya Adkisson, Jimmy Tux, Ian Chen, Lilith, Ember Lynn, The Barely Bearable Atheist, Eric Wander, Jason Jacoby, Godless Engineer, Jester, Lil of All Trades, Deviant Outcast, Kelly King, the Detroit Atheist Queen, The Mighty Filbert, and Secular Phalanist. And you can add your name here next month by signing up at patreon.com/betterthanember. or by joining memberships here on YouTube at the Cinder level, which also includes all the custom emojis, tons of member-exclusive content, member-only live streams, and a bunch of other stuff. I deeply appreciate all the supporters who keep this channel going. Thank you all so much. Because of you, we're building a wonderful community that I'm very proud of.
Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt.